you is really give a very concise talk on vitamin D and how it destroys for you. That's what we're going to talk about today, how vitamin D really serves you to destroy for you. And the talk I gave yesterday is a very long talk really about vaccines, and how the conventional pharmaceutical industry, really their intervention for something like a virus is really to talk about vaccines, quarantining people and fear-mongering, and not really educating you on the need to really support your immune system. And if you look at elderly people, if you look at people who are immunocompromised, or frankly people who don't take care of their bodies well, or we don't get enough sunlight, we talked about the importance of vitamin D to supporting what we call antimicrobial, antiviral activities. And it was a pretty long talk, but you get the politics of that. You get sort of my involvement from the political side, the approach I take from a system side, and then we talked about vitamin D. But today we're just going to really focus, do a little bit review on vitamin D, and really talk a little more detail on vitamin D. And my hope is that you can use this for yourselves, to educate yourselves, your family, but you can also use this to educate MDs as well as other healthcare professionals, because the amount of fear that's being put out is being frankly put out by a lot of ignorant people. And the only way out of ignorance is through knowledge and education, because as a great man once said, ignorance is the cause of all suffering. So, short thing, many of you know I like to connect many things, and my talks are long. I know you've liked them, but I've also gotten feedback. Can you do little snippets of pieces so we can share? So today's talk title is called, let me go back to this here, today's talk title is called How Vitamin D Destroys for You, a Molecular Systems Understanding. And as many of you know, that I actually spend most of my time in the field of researching and doing work in health. So, for example, I run various companies. One of the companies I run is called Cytosolve, and Cytosolve is really about a technology that came out of my MIT work to really understand what happens at the molecular systems level. I also do a lot of work in another company I run to educate people on the body as a system called Systems Health. And others of you may know that I've been creating and inventing since I was a kid. I created the first email system. And more recently, I've also decided to plunge and run for US Senate. It's something I did last year against someone called Elizabeth Warren. And this year, I'm running against 3 lawyers. And our Senate race has become profoundly exciting. And I'm very grateful because we've gotten so much support, not only from people in Massachusetts, but also from elsewhere, because they're recognizing that you need people like you who came from working people's backgrounds, who will fight for you, who actually know how to solve problems. So that's why I'm running for Senate. But let's jump right into vitamin D today. And what I'm hoping again is you use this to share with other people, because in this time of so much fear mongering, so much ignorance being actively promoted by the medical establishment to only direct you to vaccines, the goal here is to share with you that there's the real issue is that we want to boost up our immune system. And as a part of that, as I mentioned yesterday, we need to understand the viruses, and these pathogens are not what actually kill you. It is the overreaction of a weakened and dysfunctional immune system. So as you age, your immune system starts to go down because of thyroid function goes down. You get less hydrochloric acid, and a number of other things. Immunocompromised people, pre-existing conditions, people who have diabetes, people who have these autoimmune disorders, some of people take monoclonal antibodies, their immune systems are brought down. Or people have AIDS, immune deficiency syndrome. These things compromise people's immune systems. And so when a pathogen comes, versus going through the normal modes, which nature and God, or whatever you want to believe, created all of this thing in its natural way. Your natural systems don't work in a beautifully modulated way. They overreact. And it is that overreaction which not only goes to attack the virus, but also attacks parts of your body that result in disease and damage, etc. So that's what we covered yesterday. when we look at vitamin D, what we want to talk about is this is something that's been extremely well researched. You know, nearly 84,000 plus papers are out there. If you just go to PubMed and you look that mention vitamin D, over 1,000 systematic reviews have been done. What this means is a systematic review is not just one paper. A systematic review is where a group of scientists go and look at many papers in a field. Let's say how vitamin D affects muscle health, how vitamin D affects depression. They look at all those papers and they organize them and they come to a conclusion. That's what a systematic review is. So it's sort of a single paper done in a much more profound way. So there's been, about 1,000 plus reviews of vitamin C done, and more importantly, there's been about 9 systematic reviews done on how vitamin D affects acute respiratory infections. So just to be clear, SARS, MERS, or COVID that we're dealing with it affects the respiratory system. And the systematic reviews that have been done, about 9 of them, have really looked at the way that vitamin D supports that. In fact, the most recent one that was just done was done on by 24 institutions. It came out about a couple of years ago across 12 countries. They looked at 11,000 plus participants, and they concluded that vitamin D supplementation is safe. It protects you against acute respiratory tract infections. And by the way, people on Instagram, if you want to go to Twitter at VA_Shiva or YouTube, you can see also the slides. And they also found it definitely has a very beneficial effect on promoting survival of critical patients in the ICU. And its greatest benefits is to those who are deficient. But today, what we want to talk about from a molecular level, you see, I spend a lot of my time looking at diagrams and systems and how molecules function at the molecular level. Let me just share with you, this is the kind of stuff I look at every day. I look at molecular pathways, and this is what I called, the title of this talk is a molecular systems understanding, which means we look at how chemical reactions take place, how different things interact. So beyond running for Senate, beyond doing these videos, I actually do quite a bit of science, looking at these things, trying to connect the dots to bring knowledge out and actually to help discover new medicines, new kinds of things. So what the critical thing that was found in this latest systematic review is that when it comes to acute respiratory infections, vitamin D has the effect of really supporting the creation of cathelicidins, which are antimicrobial peptides. So cathelicidins are antimicrobial peptides. And so you take in vitamin D, you can get it from food, you can get it from the sun, you can get it from supplements, but ultimately it creates these cathelicidins, which have very powerful effects in going after and destroying and disrupting the membranes of viruses, which means essentially blowing them up from the outside. It has a very powerful effect on bacteria as well as fungi. So think about these cathelicidins are almost like artillery cannons that start firing at the membranes of the virus and essentially destroy them. So when you have vitamin D, you have the power, you're juicing these cathelicidins, which are able to destroy viruses. That's why it has an antimicrobial, antiviral activity. And I'm going to walk you through how it does this so you can see the very immense value of vitamin D. But in sort of moving from this slide here, what you're realizing is that vitamin D really has a very powerful effect on antimicrobial effects. So let's go over here. We talked about last time you have multiple systems in your body for immunity. One of them is the innate immune system, the interferon, the adaptive. Where vitamin D, by the way, vitamin D works in so many areas. Today I'm going to focus you on these cathelicidins. Where vitamin D really helps you is in the macrophages of your body. And the macrophages are a type of cell, which is in your innate immune system, one of those 5 or 6 subsystems. And the macrophages are really involved in going after, in the early phase of an infection, to destroy those microbes or those pathogens, okay? And if we go a little bit closer and we look at, remember, where everyone is concerned right now about the coronavirus, which affects the respiratory tract. So we reviewed, if you remember yesterday, here's a respiratory tract. So when things come in through your nasal cavity, go down. Eventually, at the minutia, you have these things called alveoli, and the alveoli are where exchange takes place. Exchange takes place between you're breathing in air, you're bringing in oxygen, you're taking out CO2, and blood coming in gets enriched with new oxygen. And the alveoli are almost like little refineries or processes which support that. So air comes in red, the CO2 goes out, and the exchange of air feeding your blood oxygen. Here's oxygen depleted blood coming in, and here you're getting oxygen rich blood. So the alveoli, and you have millions of these alveoli in your lungs, and this is where the gas exchange is taking place. What we want to see here is that let's now consider a virus affects your lungs. As I mentioned, someone sneezes on you, you may get it in your eyes, in your nose, and now the virus is going up into your respiratory tract. And what does your body do? Remember, in the mucosal layer, it is your innate immune system, and these macrophages are there, among other things, and the macrophages attempt to take out that virus, okay? So how do they do that, and how does vitamin D help? So first of all, the protection of the airway epithelium, meaning that your airway is surrounded, if you look here, so this is the airways, is surrounded by these epithelial cells, and these epithelial cells actively contribute to innate immunity, and the macrophages are hanging out there, and they secrete these antimicrobial peptides, and these are called cathelicidins. And we're going to see how vitamin D is essential to create these cathelicidins, which are the antimicrobial peptides. And again, just to show you here, here is one little alveoli. Here is your epithelial cells, and you notice right here this alveolar macrophage. Everyone see that? So this is your alveolar macrophages. These are those little tanks. So think about these macrophages as literally tanks which move in and try to take out that virus or bacteria or fungi, okay? So the macrophages, you'll see, try to envelop the virus, bring it in, and through a process called phagocytosis, try to destroy that virus particle. And vitamin D is critical to that process. So here, what you're seeing here is we're going to now zoom in on one of these macrophages. By the way, the macrophages, there's two kinds of macrophages. The pro-inflammatory, which are really responsible for antimicrobial activity, and the anti-inflammatory, which really support tissue repair. But today, we're really going to focus on the macrophage 1, the M1 macrophages, which are really involved in the antimicrobial activity. Okay, so if we go here, let's go a little bit deeper now. Again, the key takeaways, there's pro-inflammatory. This is when you have healthy inflammation, which is supporting you to knock out the virus. Now, this is a very nice paper, literally came out, if you look, January 10th of this year. So what I'm sharing with you is latest research. The problem unfortunately, with the way the MDs and the healthcare professionals are always under massive crisis, they don't have a chance to go even read the latest literature from today, or for that matter, 5 or 10 years. And most of the MD education is literally probably based on 50 to 100 euro understanding of the immune system. So that's why I want to do this video, is you want to share this with the medical doctors. They need to be educated because frankly, they're good people, but the educational system does not teach them a systems approach to the immune system. It doesn't teach them about nutrition. And it's time that we as patients actually educate them, and hopefully they're willing to listen. But this paper is an extraordinarily good paper because it talks about the role of vitamin D supplementation in bacterial infections like TB as well as HIV. And fundamentally what you see here is that you can get, ergocalysterol, which is vitamin D2 from milk and mushrooms. But the other form is cholecalciferol, which is a much more bioavailable version, which you get from the sun's process, from sardines. And these two forms of vitamin D are put into the form of, through a set of biological processes, 25-hydroxylase, which your liver then goes through a series of chemical reactions. One form is 24-hydroxylase and the other is 1-alpha-hydroxylase, which gives rise to calcitrol, which circulates via vitamin D protein here. But anyway, the bottom line is your liver is involved in essentially processing this and metabolizing this into another bioavailable form. At a very high level, what you see here is when it could be a tuberculosis, a bacterium, this could also be a virus, lands on your macrophage. So that circle right there is a macrophage. When it lands on a receptor, through that comes in, and what your body's trying to do is this, we're going to go into this a little more deeper, when that bacterium or virus lands, your body wants to envelop that, cage it like you see it here. The red is that bacterium or that virus, and then use cathelicidins to destroy it, okay? And it creates cathelicidins if you follow this through from vitamin D. So vitamin D comes in. Vitamin D is processed by your cell. Your GNA transcribes this protein called cathelicidin, which is then used to envelop and destroy that virus particle. So just put it simply, you have your macrophages, which detect a virus particle like HIV or the coronavirus or whatever it is, or bacterium. They envelop that, and then the process is to envelop it and destroy that particle by disrupting the wall of that virus or that bacterium, the wall. And it does that by using vitamin D. It takes in vitamin D. The vitamin D is used to use your cellular machinery to create these cathelicidins, which are then used to go destroy the virus. But I'm going to share with you some very nice diagrams, which I didn't have a chance to share with you last time. This process, as I mentioned to you, is done using these cathelicidins, which are antimicrobial peptides. They're one of the oldest mechanisms of actions towards microbial pathogens, and they involve pathogen cell wall membrane disruption of the bacteria. That means they affect the cell membranes. So here is what I call a molecular pathway. This is a molecular systems approach to understanding this. So again, on the left here, you have bioavailable vitamin D, which this black here represents a boundary of the macrophage. So this vitamin D particle comes in, and your nuclear membrane reacts with it. It goes through the nuclear membrane, and these VDRs, which are these vitamin D receptors, are created, which are then used to create, through a process of integrating with vitamin D, these cathelicidin antimicrobial peptides. So what you see here is vitamin D comes in. Vitamin D is used through a series of reactions, but the key thing is it creates these cathelicidins right here. These cathelicidins are then very critical to help in the enveloping process. So here you see the HIV coming in. Your macrophages through a phagosome take it in, and then through the autophagosome basically envelop it. So this, and first of all, to envelop this virus, you need the cathelicidins, and then to destroy the cell membranes, you also need the cathelicidins. And this is also a different look at it, but looking at bacteria like tuberculosis. So whether it's a virus like HIV or whether it's a TB bacteria, same process. You can see vitamin D is coming here. The CAMPs come up. You envelop the bacterium, and then through a process where you create this autolysosome process, you get this antimicrobial activity. And again, here, as I talked about, using our technology here, we've actually mathematically getting ready to model it. So here you see the vitamin D particle coming in. This represents the cell, the macrophage. Here is the vitamin D coming in. Here is the receptors right here. And then you see the process of cathelicidins being produced to have antimicrobial activity. What I want to share with you right now to sort of cover this so you can use this information is, this is a paper that just came out 1 year ago, and it's written in Nature. Nature is considered one of the most prestigious journals. I've published in there about a couple of years ago on looking at neurovascular disease. It's considered a very prestigious journal to publish in. But what you see here is that this article really talks about cathelicidins, 3 types of cathelicidins. Let me go over this. There's 3 types of cathelicidins this Nature article talks about. PMAP, which comes from pigs. LL37 is the cathelicidins in humans, and Cath2 is the cathelicidins in chickens. And what they've done here in this wonderful paper is, first of all, they acknowledge almost all cathelicidins show in simple media direct antimicrobial activity against bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites. So think about that. The power of the sun, vitamin D, which creates cathelicidins, to have a very powerful effect against bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites, all those things. Again, this is not in some random, woo-woo type stuff. You're hearing this from an MIT PhD who has a PhD in biological engineering, and this is written in one of the most prestigious journals in the world, why cathelicidins are important. Here is what those cathelicidins look like. This molecule over here is a cathelicidin coming in pigs. This one right at the bottom, LL37, is a cathelicidins in us, humans, that's been identified. And Cath2 is the cathelicidins that occur in chickens. What you see here is as you increase the peptide concentration on this axis of these cathelicidins, how it kills bacteria. So this you're seeing the downregulation of bacteria. So little amounts of cathelicidins as you increase. You notice LL37 is this one right in the middle. You can see the massive destruction of these bacteria. In the area of the PMAPs and Cath2, they have a similar effect here, which is bottom line is that these cathelicidins, whether it's in chickens, whether it's in pigs, or whether it's human, they really help downregulate the effect of those bacteria. Now the issue is, how do they do that? I didn't share this last time, and it's quite fascinating. The way they do it is these cathelicidins literally go and attack the bacteria, right? They literally, what they do is, if you look at these little particles here, and I'll show you a closer picture here, these little triangular red particles, they literally go and hang out on the membrane of the bacteria, and then they surround it, and they literally crush it, so the bacteria, the wall, the virus wall blows up, and you have the leakage of the intercellular content. So they're literally attacking it from outside, and this is a closer picture. So what you see here is, here's a cathelicidins, and being created by our macrophages, they surround the wall of the bacteria, right here as you can see, and they really bust up the bacteria's wall by surrounding it, and then basically blowing up the bacteria. So that's what's going on here. And I want to show you some pictures that just came out in this article. You can see it here. To keep it simple, this first piece right here, the first column on my left here is nice bacteria. They're called a control, so two different kinds of bacteria. This is what happens with the cathelicidins in pigs, cathelicidins in chickens, and the cathelicidins in humans. Let's just focus on the humans. What you see here in this diagram is you literally see that the cell walls, if you notice, this is a beautiful cell wall of the bacteria not being affected, same here, but here you see the cathelicidins are starting to tear away and lyse, which means break up the bacteria, okay? In this case, essentially surround it from outside and rip it to shreds. So that's what's going on. These cathelicidins have an antimicrobial, antiviral activity. They break up the cell walls of those bacteria. Again, where do we get cathelicidins? They're upregulated from vitamin D. Okay, so this is how vitamin D destroys for you. Vitamin D is actually destroying for you. So in conclusion, I'm trying to do this in a briefer way, is that vitamin D deficiency leads to a weakened immune system. Vitamin D is essential to creating those cathelicidins, antimicrobial proteins. Vitamin D sources are from sunlight, dietary supplements, fatty fish, and cod liver oil. Now, in the letter I wrote to President Trump, my opinion, based on all this if you look at all the research that's been done across many years, vitamin D is safe. Obviously, everyone here, in the ideal case, you go to your doctor, you get your vitamin D, vitamin A test. And I've said it's sort of unfortunate that the medical establishment is not telling people to have these two simple tests. But if you do these tests or not, or if you go read the papers, you'll see that we've given very high dosage vitamin D for short periods, like 50,000 IUs, 2 days. If you're under massive attack, it can be very beneficial. But for maintenance, I personally take around 5 to 10,000 IUs per day. Obviously, if you're getting lots of sun, you can check your vitamin D levels. They should be in the range of around 50 to 70 nanomolars or nanograms per nanoliter. So you can check those out. You read the literature, do some research, talk to your doctor. But you can see the market size is $1.7 billion. I mean, it's not like people are making a ton of money off this relative to, and the use of vitamin D here, as you can see here, as I mentioned, these are the things, is around 7%. And as I mentioned, this is very different than the vaccines, which pharma is promoting, because vaccines are the way pharma companies plan, as I talked about in the previous discussion, how they want to save themselves. Vaccines are their only way out. Pharma sales are going out, so vaccines are their next big market. And think about this. Global vaccine market is $60 billion today, and it's going to double every 6 years if they have it their way. The last thing I want to end with, this is a paper that just came out literally about February 27, 2020. So this is one I'll be talking about later. If you notice, people talk about people being indoors, how people get depression from not enough vitamin D. Well, this paper is the first paper that just came out in February 2020, which literally shows how people who died of suicide, they had decreased expression of these cathelicidins, okay? They had decreased expression of these cathelicidins, so it's quite extraordinary. And many of these people had deficient vitamin D levels. So what that means is that you need those cathelicidins, and this is the first paper to show that as you have decreasing amounts of cathelicidins, that is directly correlated to people who committed suicide. So anyway, I don't know if there's any questions. Jen, you can text me any questions, but I hope this was valuable. This is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai. Again, I'm running for United States Senate. I'm a scientist, an educator, and an inventor, and I hope to serve you and continue to do more videos like this. Please feel free, if you want to send me any questions, you can send me at vashiva@vashiva.com. Some of you actually have my email address, so you're welcome to email me or even call me on the phone. I've made myself pretty accessible. Timing of vitamins, does it matter? That's a question. So the question is, does timing of vitamins matter? Look, one of the most important things in any of these things, my view is that the more you get it from food and natural sources is the best thing, which means ideally you go out in the sun. You get it from, by the way, when you take vitamin D, some of the literature would say you have to balance it with vitamin K. Well, if you're out in the sun and you're eating your dark leafy green vegetables and your dark fruits, you're pretty much getting vitamin K and your vitamin D, and you're getting a lot of other nutrients. But if you happen to be stuck inside, you take your vitamin D. Ideally, you eat it with food because you want your body to recognize this as a part of food. And ideally, you take vitamin D if you're doing with fatty foods, less starchy foods. So if you're eating it with, your avocados or your fatty fish, those kinds of things, ideally. So point is, eat it with food. Your mind now also thinks it as a sort of food, and that probably has some valuable things, so you're enjoying it. It's not your pill popping all day, but these are meant to be dietary supplements. They're not supposed to be something you live off. Now, if you're in acute conditions, like I've shared in the letter to the president, that I think this could be very beneficial in short term, and then you go to your maintenance dose. So again, if you're if you're under massive amounts of stress, massive amounts of or the ability where you're in darkness all day, or like people are in quarantine. I fortunately have a lot of sunlight in the house I live in, so I'm pretty much getting vitamin D all the time, but I still supplement. Any other questions, Jen? As Jen is doing there, I just want to let people know that I am running for United States Senate, and I want to be someone who really discusses health at the forefront, because without our health, as my mom would say, health is wealth. Those people want to support our campaign. You're welcome to go donate, whatever you want to do. You can even be volunteers if you can't donate. But those people who donate 25 or more, I hate to, as I mentioned over and over again, take something for nothing. But if you donate, I actually give you a book called System and Revolution, and actually give you access to a piece of software that I wrote that allows you to actually have access to technology that can help you, teach you how your body is a system. I think one of the questions was, does the age matter? In the recommendation, again, this is everything I'm sharing with you is in the literature. So you should consult your doctor. I'm not here to give, direct medical advice. What I've shared with the president is my analysis, as I'm showing here, as someone who's been looking at this for many, many years. Let me share with you here. Oops, let me go here. If you go to, let me see what's happening here. Is somebody, let's go here and you'll see there's a page here which has the actual, here we go. Maybe it's just taking time to download. Let's just give it a couple of seconds. But kids dose, the question is a kid's dosage different than an adult's dosage? Yes. Click on the title. Oh. 1 second, Jen. You want me to click on which title? Huh. Well, let me click here to understand for you guys, and I'll come right back. Okay. So if you go to the letter, which you can get to, it's called Economic, Immune and Economic Health for America. For kids, the maintenance dosage is, again, it comes from the literature around 2,000 IU vitamin D per day ongoing. So 2,000 IU, 5,000 for adults. 2,000 IU for children, and 5,000 for adults. Any other questions? All right. So the key takeaway is that vitamin D empowers cathelicidins, which are antimicrobial, and share this with people and let me know what other videos you'd like me to do. Again, God bless you, and I wish everyone a great weekend. If you can get out in the sun, please go do that. Eat well, be well, take care. Thank you. Oh, and again, go to Shiva for Senate, support our campaign, and let's win truth, freedom, and health.